What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we got a good one for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be going over the biggest sleeper at every position. In fantasy drafts, we're always super excited to be making our early round draft picks, get those staples on our teams, the players that carry us week in and week out. While those players are undoubtedly important when it comes to making a run to the playoffs, further into the championships, sometimes it's those unsung heroes, those late round guys, those sleepers that really become those difference makers on our teams, separating ourselves from our opponents. Finding and identifying solid sleepers becomes increasingly difficult year in and year out. But in today's video, I put together a list of 4 sleepers that I think you can definitely rely on and target at the later stages of the draft, and each player on this list I feel really good about. Before we do get into the video though, just a quick shout out and reminder that if you do enjoy these videos, the best way to show your support is definitely by hitting that like button. It only takes a moment for you, but greatly helps us out in growing the channel. As you may know, we're on the road to 100k subscribers. Our goal though is to reach that by the start of the NFL season, and with all of your help, we can certainly make that a reality. So if you enjoy the video, definitely hit that like button, and if you're new, maybe you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, consider taking today as an opportunity to do so. Also, guys, be advised, our draft packages are out and available now. If you guys want access to all of our sleepers, targets, busts, our tier-based rankings, risk ratings, player projections, video player breakdowns on the top 150 players, access to our private Discord community group, and more, you can access that at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. The link for that, as always, is in the description box below. With that being said though, it's time to hop over to our stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was who is the youngest running back to have a rushing touchdown last season. The correct answer was actually Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Congratulations to Rob40mil, the first to get this right on YouTube. And as for Twitter, at Tyler_Eschleman. Once again, congratulations to both of you. But let's see who can get today's stat of the day. Sticking with age, which quarterback was the youngest to have at least 35 fantasy points in a single week last season? Once again, that's which quarterback was the youngest player to have 35 or more fantasy points in a single week last season. Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Alright guys, now without further ado, it's time to get right into the video, and to start this list, we will begin as per usual with the player listed on the thumbnail. No surprise here, it's Russell Gage of the Atlanta Falcons. Russell Gage, to be frank, is just somebody I can't wrap my head around when you really add up all the factors surrounding him, taking into account his ADP, how he's been trending over the past few seasons, the situation with his offense and his role heading into this season. When you add all of those up and look at these factors, they don't all quite line up. Ultimately, that all adds up though to you guys getting a better deal for him on draft day, so we really can't complain. We'll get into exactly why, but for starters, let's talk a little bit about Russell Gage and how he's performed throughout his first 3 years in the NFL. Russell Gage has been a player that's been trending up in nearly every statistical category since being drafted in 2018. In his rookie season, he did appear in 15 games, his only season as a pro where he's ever actually missed an NFL game. A side note there, but definitely worth mentioning because he is reliable so far when it comes to health and availability and being on the field. In his rookie season, he saw hardly no involvement, actually only receiving 10 targets across the entire season, but took a major step forward in the 2019 campaign, receiving 74 targets, catching 49 of them for 446 receiving yards, and even scored a touchdown in the process. This was the season that many of us became aware that Russell Gage was going to be a regular contributor in this offense. To what extent, we really didn't know, but he really picked it up, put that production into overdrive in his 3rd season in 2020, where he kicked his production into overdrive, going from 74 targets in his sophomore campaign to 110 targets this past season. 110 targets may not seem all that high, but it still was good for a ranking of 22nd most targets in the entire league. Very impressive for a simple role player, but that's definitely on the back of the Atlanta Falcons passing offense, a passing offense from a volume perspective that is ranked top 5 over the past several seasons, something we should come to expect once again for 2021 as well. He converted his 110 targets to 72 receptions, 786 receiving yards to go along with 4 touchdowns, his previous career high being 1 touchdown in a season, so you can see clearly Russell Gage improving in many key areas. For that though, he is now primed to be stepping into a major role this upcoming season, and for a player who already ranked 22nd in total targets across the NFL last season to be stepping into an even increased role for this upcoming year, that just goes to tell you exactly how much potential Russell Gage has for this upcoming season. The Atlanta Falcons traded away Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans, which opens up a massive target market share in this offense, previously hosted by Julio Jones. Over the past 3 seasons, Julio Jones received 68 targets last year, obviously banged up, only appearing in 9 games, but looking back to 2019 where he appeared in 15 games, he saw 157 total targets. The year before that, 2018, 16 games, a full 16-game season. His target market share in that season, a whopping 170 targets. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Russell Gage is going to just immediately step in and fill a Julio Jones role. No, I don't mean that at all. And we do have to come to the realization that this team did draft Kyle Pitts, a young tight end that will come in and in his first year step into a major role, receiving plenty of volume himself, soaking up a lot of that market share. In addition, Calvin Ridley, a player who himself garners a high target market share. So just to make sure we're setting our expectations appropriately, we should fully expect Russell Gage to come into this season competing for second, possibly third on this team when it comes to total targets. But considering the fact that the Atlanta Falcons have such a poor defense, Matt Ryan being the type of quarterback that is a pure pocket passer just leads to more passing volume as a whole as compared to other offenses where they do rely more on their mobility. So the Atlanta Falcons once again should be ranking top 5 when it comes to overall passing plays, overall passing opportunities for 2021, which means even if he does rank second or third on this team in volume, that is by far more than enough pass attempts and passing volume for Russell Gage to completely smash his ADP. If you remember back to the beginning of this take, I said that Russell Gage, his situation and his ADP completely doesn't make sense. The reason I said that, his ADP is currently outside the top 50. Russell Gage, last season, in a more diminished role than what he will have this season, finished as the wide receiver 37 in PPR leagues. Now he's being drafted outside the top 50 wide receivers. That, to me, completely baffles me. We know the Atlanta Falcons will be returning with a poor defense, plenty of garbage time opportunities. Calvin Ridley, while he will be the main receiver in this offense, he was banged up last season. There is the potential for Calvin Ridley to go down and Russell Gage to even get more targets in this offense. On top of that, his biggest competition for targets from being second or possibly third in this offense is a rookie tight end, a position that we've seen historically does take 1, 2, possibly even 3 years to get accustomed to the NFL level. It's one that doesn't translate easily from college to the NFL level, and while Kyle Pitts is definitely the type of prospect to be able to negate that, we still do have to put that in the favor of Russell Gage when it comes to his potential to exceed our expectations for 2021. With all of that though, his ADP just doesn't reflect that, so that's why Russell Gage makes this list of biggest sleepers at the wide receiver position. Alright guys, it's time to move into the next position, and we're going to move into the quarterback position, and to lead this list of the biggest sleeper at quarterback is Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers. Currently, Fantasy Pros has Trey Lance as the 27th quarterback off the board, and that makes sense because he isn't projected to start the season as the San Francisco 49ers starter. There is a chance that Trey Lance never actually sees field time as a starter without an injury to Jimmy G, but let's be honest, let's be frank, Jimmy G, he's not a quarterback we can 100% trust to remain healthy all season. That does mean that even if Trey Lance doesn't overtake him and get the nod to start with a healthy Jimmy G, the odds of Trey Lance actually starting due to injury is still a significant chance as it is. For those of you who may not be familiar with the type of player that Trey Lance is, I'll go over some of his strengths in college. For starters, he's a big body player. We're talking 6'4", 225 pounds, so prototypical size. He's also a very mobile quarterback. His last full season playing as a starter, a 16-game season, he had 287 pass attempts, 2,786 passing yards, solid completion rate, 67%, 28 passing touchdowns to a mere 0 interceptions, so definitely a player who knows how to take care of the football, actually setting an NCAA record in the process himself. But on the ground with his legs, where he really shines, we're talking 1,100 rushing yards to go along with 14 rushing touchdowns. His mobility is definitely what sets him apart from many of the other prospects, and it really makes you wonder what Trey Lance can do in a Kyle Shanahan offense when you combine his size, his speed, his mobility, along with his ability to take care of the football and not turn the ball over. It seems like a combination perfectly fit for the San Francisco 49ers. On top of that, some of his other strengths are he's able to go through a full field when it comes to reads. He has bouncy feet in the pocket, so he's not a player that's just going to stick and move. No, he's always going to be aware of his surroundings while also being fully mobile, looking for the play to develop downfield. In addition to that, he's known as a play fake aficionado, meaning he can sell fakes. He is a king of misdirection, which fits exactly into the play style of what the 49ers love to do under Kyle Shanahan. But the best part is none of this is at the sacrifice or the expense of ball security. Ball security is always number one. Trey Lance knows this, which means his transition from being a college player to the NFL level should be as smooth a transition as we've ever seen. In addition to that, if we're talking fantasy play, Trey Lance, he's a mobile quarterback who's going to be getting a lot of his fantasy production through his legs. That means even if he's struggling to connect on some of his passes, his week-to-week consistency, his weekly floor should still remain high just due to his mobility and his production he's getting on the ground. So while he's still learning, developing, becoming accustomed to this offense, we can at least expect from a fantasy perspective for him to still be able to put up points and not completely bust for our team. The best part though is that when you're drafting him, you can draft him as a second option, so you're likely going to have your starter. Just have Trey Lance sitting on the bench, somebody that you can just wait on, sit on, and even if it's his first week as a starter, you're not going to feel forced to put him in. The best approach when drafting Trey Lance is to draft him to not need him, but if he does come out, if he surprises us, if he combines that mobility with the creativity of the Kyle Shanahan offense, and it all meets to provide the upside we all know it could bring, Trey Lance is definitely a player who could be putting up 20, 25 point weeks, week in and week out without too much difficulty, because the San Francisco 49ers offense is completely loaded right now with weapons between Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle coming back healthy, Deebo Samuel, and a questionable cast of running backs. So Trey Lance is definitely going to have all the tools he'll need to succeed. The only question is when he'll get his opportunity, but some people definitely believe it could be as early as week 1, but even if it's not, he's being drafted as the quarterback 27 off the board, so it definitely won't hurt you to grab him and stash him, because we believe he is the biggest sleeper at the quarterback position. Alright guys, it's time to move into the next position, and we're going to move into the tight end position, and the biggest sleeper we have at tight end is Adam Trautman of the New Orleans Saints. When it comes to Adam Trautman for 2021, there are just a million question marks with this situation, with the offense, just a lot of unknowns, and as we know, unknowns do present upside at times. Unknown number 1, Adam Trautman. How good exactly is he? We did get a glimpse of him in the 2020 season. When I say glimpse though, I truly mean glimpse. He only received 16 targets, catching 15 of them for 171 receiving yards to go along with one receiving touchdown. Since he was a rookie, that's really the entire sample that we have on him. To his credit though, catching 15 of a possible 16 total targets is an extremely good catch rate. On top of that, he did score a touchdown, so one of his 15 receptions did convert into a touchdown. Two very positive marks that we could look at on his very small sample of work. One thing that makes Adam Trautman one of the better targets when looking for a tight end in the later stages of the drafts is because when you're looking for a tight end in the league whatsoever to draft for fantasy, you're looking for those tight ends that could potentially develop into more than just a role player, more than just the typical tight end, somebody that could be more integrated into the offense and play more of a wide receiver position for a team that's lacking weapons offensively. The New Orleans Saints, while we can't say that they're completely lacking weapons overall, I mean, Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas are two premier players in the league, but outside of them, and definitely looking and honing in more specifically on the receiving section of the New Orleans Saints offense, behind Michael Thomas in the receiving game, they really don't have too many weapons. Behind Michael Thomas, of course, you have Traquan Smith, the only notable name. Behind him, I don't even think many people have heard of many of these names. Marquez Callaway, Juwan Johnson, Kawan Baker, Jake Lampman. I mean, realistically, are we expecting these players to have significant roles for this upcoming season? They would have to seriously surprise us in order for that to be the case. Adam Trautman, though, is one player on this offense that we know is going to see snaps. We know he's going to be on the field, while those other wide receivers will be competing amongst themselves for targets, even snaps to even be on the field. Adam Trautman is a player who is not going to have much competition behind him when it comes to being able to make it on the field, so we know he's going to be available and he's going to be out there. So Adam Trautman is definitely a player I see competing with these wide receivers for a target market share. I wouldn't be surprised behind Michael Thomas to see him competing for third, possibly fourth at worst when it comes to target distribution. The way I see it, it would go Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara likely receiving somewhere around 100 targets across an entire season, then throw in Traquan Smith, who I believe can be neck and neck with Adam Trautman. They could be competing tit for tat when it comes to target market share and distribution in this offense. So that tells you I see Adam Trautman definitely developing into a player that can be more than just the usual tight end, definitely a player that can be relied on between the 20s, maybe even having a more featured role in the red zone, because if we're looking strictly at Adam Trautman's physical capabilities, he has all the makings of a potential red zone nightmare. For starters, he's 6'5", 255 pounds. While he's not the fastest. His 40-yard dash time's in the 45th percentile. His height adjusted speed score, not that much better, 54th percentile. But where Trautman actually shines the most is in his agility score, so his 3-cone drill, his short area quickness. This is something that can definitely be utilized heavily in the red zone. That area he actually ranks in the 95th percentile, and with his height being 6'5" and his big body 255 pounds, combine that with his 81st percentile catch radius, you have a player that can be a complete mismatch for defenses in that area of the field. And in the extremely short sample that we have seen for Adam Trautman while he's been on the field, catching 15 of a possible 16 pass attempts, one of them even resulting in a touchdown, it does leave open the door for him to potentially have a breakout season at the tight end position, and currently his ADP is the tight end 21. This means he's virtually free in drafts. You can take him as your second tight end, so you're not having to risk it for the biscuit. We do believe Adam Trautman is one of the biggest sleepers at the tight end position, so we definitely will have shares of him for this upcoming year. Alright guys, we're moving into the final player on this biggest sleeper at every position list, and as you know, it is going to be at the running back position. I did want to choose a player at running back that does have the potential to start week 1, so that's going to eliminate all the handcuffs, all the players like AJ Dillon, Tony Pollard, all these players that make absolutely phenomenal late round sleepers but would need an injury in order for them to completely pop off and crack your starting lineup. So I did want to eliminate those players, and it did limit the player pool because again, we do want to have a player that's being drafted in the late rounds. Finding a player that you can draft in the later rounds that has a potential to start week 1 is not an easy task, but the player I chose in this video is Michael Carter of the New York Jets. Now I get right off the bat, whenever I bring up a Jets player, it's never going to be a fan favorite, but guys, we do have to come to the realization that this Jets team has the potential to be a completely different Jets team than we have seen last year and in years past. For starters, the starting quarterback is completely different. We're moving away from Sam Darnold. Now we have Zach Wilson, and although Zach Wilson is unproven himself, when it comes to unknowns, unknowns do present potential upside. One thing that we can say for sure to the credit of the New York Jets offense is that when it comes to wide receivers, they're definitely not short at that position whatsoever. If we're talking Denzel Mims, Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore, a player that we think is a phenomenal stud, also a giant sleeper that you can be targeting in the later rounds at this position. Taking into account all of those names, Zach Wilson is going to have plenty of options to throw to in the passing game, and if there's any success in that area, that could open up more opportunities for the run game to develop itself. Michael Carter, though, wouldn't be the type of player to rely on a positive game script in order to get his fantasy production. The reason I say that is because Michael Carter is well versed in the receiving game, so if this team is playing from 2 scores behind in the late 3rd and 4th quarter, if the team simply needs a receiving running back in the backfield to catch passes, Michael Carter is definitely the player whose number can be called in those situations. Carter has an extremely strong receiving resume throughout his college career. We're talking about a player that during college was targeted over 100 total times, and when looking for players with a receiving resume coming out of college, it's difficult to find a player with a larger receiving resume than that of Michael Carter. Whenever we're targeting running backs for fantasy football, we always want to target running backs that have that receiving floor, that week-to-week consistency. That's something Michael Carter will bring to the table from day one. And looking at the competition at the running back position surrounding him, you really only have a bunch of has-beens and never was. Currently, the depth chart for the New York Jets running back position is headlined by Tevin Coleman, a player who's been oft injured and never really truly found success ever since leaving Atlanta all the way back several years ago. Behind him, we have Ty Johnson, formerly of the Detroit Lions, a player who never really made a role on his first team for Detroit. In the limited opportunities we've seen of Ty Johnson when he had been the starter for Detroit, we really haven't seen anything that really impressed us, so he's not a player that I'm really all that worried about from taking snaps away from Michael Carter, or at least limiting his ability to see the field and potentially get a crack at that starter work. Then lastly, we have LaMichael Pirine, a player who we did see get a significant workload last season and definitely disappointed by many people's standards, my own included. So if you're asking me, Michael Carter with that level of talent ahead of him on the depth chart should have no problem getting a crack at potentially getting starter level snaps. What he's able to do with the ball in his hands is going to be up to him, but for him to have the ability to be in that position, there is no doubt in my mind that he is set up to do so. For that, he does make a great sleeper in the later rounds just due to the overall unknowns we have in this New York Jets offense. And while his role is in no way guaranteed, if you're looking for a player in the later rounds that could come out in week 1 and surprise you and potentially be a top 25 guy from that point on, Michael Carter, unlike some of the other players being drafted around him, definitely brings that type of package to the table. For that, he definitely makes one of the biggest sleepers with those type of parameters in the later rounds, so that's why he headlines my list at that position. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hoped you enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.